Bruchim Aboim, B'Shem Irgin Shir Torah. I'd like to welcome everyone to today's shir from Harav Yaakov Zev Smith Shlita, Be'inyan Shir Kloli, Be'inyan Be'issur Hachana B'Shabbos yomtov, challenging Hachana questions. We have the great schus sponsoring a shir call, Irgin Shir Torah at 718-851-8651 or email ist@yeshivanet.com. Harav Smith Shlita.
That's the subject of today, challenging Hachana questions, is something that comes up all the time. A regular Shabbos, and we look forward to yomtov. I'll give you just a few samples that we began with. Someone asked he wants to put the dishes in the dishwasher after using on Friday night and Shabbos afternoon. Is he allowed to first rinse off the dishes before he puts them in the dishwasher? Because that's really an achana for the Matzoy Shabbos washing. We have a question about studying for a test. Today the Bachram, Balabatim, I should say, also take tests and learning in Shas and Halacha, written tests. You're allowed to study for a test, Limudei Chayil, Limudei Kodesh. And as we'll see, that really the question is Negeya on Shabbos and Yomtov. There's no difference, Hilchos Achana, Shabbos and Yomtov. So basically, instead of just saying what's mut and what's us, I'd like to try to go through the sugya, getting a little bit of a clarity in what the issur of Achana is, when it applies, and then we could apply it to the numerous shilas. So as our derech ways is to try to find one yesod that will give us some guidance. Let's talk about a simple Hachana question. A person is leaving from the bungalow or from camp on Sunday. So typically you pack on Matzoy Shabbos, Sunday morning. But he has time on Shabbos, he wants to pack on Shabbos to go home on Sunday. That's a good case of Hachana. He's packing on Shabbos for Sunday. The question is, what's wrong with Hachana? Obviously, he's not doing a malacha. If he's touching muktzah, so it's tamasa. Hachana means you know I'll do it on Shabbos for Sunday. If it's a malacha, then you know I'll do it on Shabbos for Shabbos even. So the Rav says that clearly in Reish Nun Daled Sif Yud, that Hachana is no malacha whatsoever. So why is it asa? So the most simple pshat is it's a tircha shaloi l'tzoyrech. You're not allowed to be busy on Shabbos doing things for Matzoy Shabbos. We know tircha yisei is asa even on Shabbos. But a tircha on Shabbos for Sunday is a tircha shaloi l'tzoyrech Shabbos. That's the issur. Or maybe it's even more pashut. Maybe it's just a zilzul of Shabbos. It's a bizayin of Shabbos. It's a terrible lack of priorities. Don't forget, we just learned a few weeks ago in Parashat B'Shalach, so the Gemara in Beya darshins, choyel meichin l'Shabbos. You have to prepare on Friday for Shabbos. But Shabbos is not meichin for Sunday. It's a terrible abuse of the Shabbos. So either the point is it's a tircha shaloi l'tzoyrech, or maybe it's just a zilzul in Shabbos. Of course, the obvious nafkamina would be when there's no tircha. We'll soon see a mere talking hachana. That wouldn't be a tircha shaloi l'tzoyrech, but maybe it's a zilzul. So the best way to do things properly is look up the source and see vashtet. There are actually 3 Gemaras that discuss hachana, and they all give us a very clear picture. In the Mishnah in Shabbos Kuf Yud Gimel, the Mishnah says you're allowed to make a bed to go to sleep at night, but you can't make your bed Shabbos afternoon to prepare for Matzoy Shabbos. That's the source of the issur of Hachana. You're preparing the bed on Shabbos to go to sleep on Sunday. Now, this sounds a little strange, because when we make the bed, you make the bed so the room should look nice now. You don't make a bed to prepare to go to sleep tonight. You could go to sleep in an unmade bed. So the Ktsaisa Shulchan in the end of Kuf Yud Zayin explains that in those days it was different lifestyle. They had tiny apartments. They had one room, bedroom, dining room, living room, study. That was the room. So they brought out the beds at night and they slept it. Then the next morning they took apart the beds. Of course, they didn't assemble it. You're not allowed to make a bed on Shabbos. But they took off the mattress. They moved the thing. So basically, making the bed was literal preparing the bed to go to sleep. So if you make the bed Friday night to go to sleep Friday night, that's Hachana on Shabbos for Shabbos. But when you make the bed Shabbos afternoon, you put the mattress and you put the pillows back and everything back, you're preparing for a sleeping on Matzoy Shabbos. That's the issur of Hachana. This is quoted in the Magen Avraham Mishtabura in Simon Shin Beis. So one achana is preparing the bed for sleep. We'll soon talk about our making beds, how that fits into the picture. The second source is a Gemara in Shabbos Kuf Yud Ches. You're allowed to wash dishes if you're going to use them on Shabbos. You can wash Friday night for Shabbos or Shabbos for Shalasudis. But once you've finished eating, you're not allowed to wash dishes. Again, a simple hachana. But this is the Gemara in Shabbos Kuf Yud Ches, and Rashi explains the ein hadacha zu ela l'chayil. Now this is a perfect example and a perfect description of the issur hachana. Ein ma'isa zu ela l'chayil. Why are you washing dishes Shabbos afternoon? You could do it on Matzah Shabbos. You don't need it on Shabbos. You're doing a post-Shabbos need on Shabbos. Ein hadacha zu ela l'chayil. And this is quoted in Shulchan Aruch Shin Chav Gimel Sivav. And the third source is a Gemara in Shabbos Kuf Yud Dalet Amud Beis about preparing a salad for Matzoy Yom Kippur, which is Shabbos. And you're not doing Beira. He's not doing Teichin. He's preparing on Shabbos Yom Kippur for Matzoy Yom Kippur. Now, there's no malacha, but that's a perfect hachana example. But here Rashi adds a few key words. The katarach mi Shabbos l'chayil. Rashi is giving us an explanation why hachana is asa. You are being matriach on Shabbos for a post-Shabbos need, and that's wrong. The Ravid in Hilchos Shabbos, Perek Chav Gimel Halacha Zayin, quotes this halacha of hachana mipnei shu tereach l'chayil. So we see three Gemaras, and all give us a very nice picture. It's a post-Shabbos activity that you're doing on Shabbos. The Rav in Shin Lamed Ches Siv Ches, when he explains one of the issur vachanas, he adds the following: "Mipnei she'terech b'dava she'eina l'tzorech Shabbos u'ma'aseh chayil u'zilzul Shabbos." So I realize that both reasons are true, and it's not a stira, it's not a machlokes. The simple reason is tircha shalai l'tzorech. But then again, it's also a terrible lack of priorities. Shabbos, every moment of Shabbos is precious. Why are you wasting Shabbos for a post-Shabbos need? You're packing on Shabbos for Matzoy Shabbos. It's outlandish. We mentioned earlier the Gemara, in a different shir, the Gemara in Ksubis, Kuf Gimel, where the Gemara says Rabbeinu HaKadosh would leave his exalted place in Olam Haba to come down to this world for Shabbos. That's what a moment of Shabbos is. And you give it up Shabbos for a Matzoy Shabbos. You know, people like schoolers. I'll tell you a beautiful school that mamish works. The Machab in Reish Sad Gimel Sif Aleph says, "B'ma'achat tfilas arvis ke lahaysev michayil ala kodesh." Just push off Ma'ariv to keep more Shabbos, extra moments of Shabbos. No, but that's not enough. Zok Ramah, we say V'hu Rachum and Baruch Hu slowly to prolong Shabbos, but it's still not enough. Zok Shari Tshuv in the end of Reish Sad Gimel, quoting earlier sources, he quotes Rab Haigoin, Kabbalah Damansi. It's a proven skula that you'll have Hatzlacha that week when you say Baruch Hashem HaMavorech La'olam Va'ed slowly to keep the Shabbos. Now we're not talking about extra minutes of Shabbos, because the whole Baruch Hu is less than a minute. An extra second of Shabbos is a guaranteed skula. What's it a skula for besides Hatzlacha? For bracha, because a moment of Shabbos ki mekara bracha. So this is a very, very slight insight on what Shabbos is. We try to squeeze out every second of Shabbos. But to go work on Shabbos for Sunday, that's a tircha shalei l'tzorech and a zilzul of Shabbos. Now just to give you a little of an appreciation of how Chazal were concerned about Hachana, the Torah in Even Ezer, Siman Kuf Samach Tes, there's a whole Seder Chalitza. Mechaber has a whole siman about it in Kuf Samach Tes. One of the halachos is the bezin have to be kaveya makam. This is the makam of a chalitza. So the Beis Yosef brings a Trumas Hadesh in Even Ezer Kuf Samach Tes that the bezin should not make the kviyas makam chalitza on Shabbos, and he says it's like boina. So the Dr. Moshe, if you cut and down, says boina. I mean, it's really a ruchnistic boina. I think the issur is meichen mi Shabbos l'chayil. Now it's only a few words. You're not doing an action. So if you look in Shulchan Aruch in the Seder Chalitza Sif Katan Tezayin, he quotes the halacha not to make the seder chalitza, the malka chalitza on Shabbos, and the goyin kedarka b'kodesh nivkat and chafei, he sends you to the end of the third parak in Eiruvin. What's the shaychus chalitza with Eiruvin? If you look up the sugya in Eiruvin, you're not supposed to make an erev techumin on yomtov l'Shabbos for Hachana. Now you're not doing anything. He put it down already, but the talking is the problem. Obviously, that would be considered inappropriate for covered Shabbos or covered yomtov. So we see even words that are not tircha is a zilzul in Shabbos. You're making a makam chalitza now? Wait till later. Wait till after Shabbos. Another mashal I think we'll appreciate because it's in Yonah D'Yoyma. In Shulchan Aruch Taf Mem Dalet Tziv Gimel, the Mechaber says on a Pesach Shechal b'Shabbos, you're technically allowed to have a chametz take a challah, but the problem is what are you going to do with the pot afterwards? Zok the Mechaber, you can't wash out the challah pot on Shabbos because you're not going to use the challah pot on Pesach. It's first going to be used a week or two from now. So washing the pot would be achana. So the eitzah says the mechaber, clean it with your fingers. Now we would think, I can't wash a challah pot on Shabbos. I mean, this is the 11th hour. We're holding mamish. It's almost Pesach, but there's no heter to wash a pot for no reason. So it's interesting. I mean, we would think this is the most important need, but if you could avoid washing it, licking with your fingers, that's the way to do it. So that's examples of achana. Now let's apply this a little more specifically, okay? Someone asked me a wonderful question. In some shuls, I mean, it's a wonderful new metzias that every shul has a avos ubanim matzoy Shabbos. In his particular shul, the avos ubanim program was held right after Shabbos, before you went home for havdala. So he says a child comes to mincha carrying his papers, whatever he has to do for avos ubanim. He's carrying on Shabbos for matzoy Shabbos. Now we're talking, of course, within an eiruv. There's no problem of haitzah, but there's a problem of achana. He's carrying papers for Mitzvah Shabbos. The fact that there's an eiruv means there's no issur haitzah, but it's still achana. So the shaila is there a het of achana for a dvar mitzvah? So we do find certain issurei d'rabbanan amutta b'malka mitzvah. L'mashal, you're not allowed to buy or sell on Shabbos, mimtzei chefzecha, but you're allowed to buy or sell aliyas. But it could be hachana is worse. Because Hachana is a zilzul in Shabbos. Hachana is a tircha shleil tzayich. So if you could, the fact that it's a mitzvah doesn't really justify Hachana. Do it after Shabbos. So go home and bring it back. And the emphasis is there are plenty of rayas that Hachana applies even by malka mitzvah. First, we just saw the case of chalitza, which is a malka mitzvah. The whole concept of preparing on one day yomtov to the second day, that's the Shulchan Aruch in the end of Tov Reish Samach Zayin. You can't prepare on Yomtov Sunday, let's say this year Pesach, for Monday, Yomtov Rishon, Yomtov Sheni, because Yomtov Sheni is a lesser Kedusha. Yomtov Sheni is also a mitzvah. The Shari Tshuva in Tov Reish Sad the Gimel, Siv Beis, speaks about when Purim falls on Matzoi Shabbos, you can't bring your Megillah to shul Shabbos afternoon, of course within the eiruv, because you're preparing on Shabbos for Purim. It's a mitzvah. The Pais can speak about bringing on Matzah Shabbos Tisha B'Av, bringing your kinnis or your Tisha B'Av shoes to shul in a bungalow where there's an eiruv because it's achana. The Magen Avram and Tov Reish Samach Zayin Sif Cotton Gimel quotes a Maril, not the Mishnah Sefer Torah on one day Yom Tov to the second, or from Shabbos to Yom Tov. I mean, something that are coming up in the next Yom Tov that we look forward to. B'kitzur, there are many cases of hachana malka mitzvah and there's no heter. And the svara is, why be matriach on Shabbos for a mitzvah? Now, if he can't do it, if there's no other eitzah, we'll soon see b'makam hefsid is a heter. So what I told this person is, why don't you learn with your child a little bit on Shabbos, use those papers on Shabbos, or you might use them, so then you have a heter, you're doing it l'tzarech Shabbos. Okay. Question, interesting ha'ara. There was a minig, you don't see it as much, but remember when I was growing up, this was like in every shul had a shamish or a gabbai, and he prepared for the shalashudis. He brought out the sardines, which you rarely see anymore, and he also brought out the mayim achreinim shissel. He filled up the mayim achreinim shissel and put it on the table. So the question is, in a shul that they know they always bench after this man, Let's say they're not there ma'achrin lotzes. They always bench you after the zman. So he's preparing the ma'im achronim now to use after the zman. So I saw the Shmir HaShabbos in Chavches, Kuf Samaches. He says, you're not going to make achana on Shabbos for bein hashmoshes, because you're making achana for Shabbos for a post-Shabbos need. But the emphasis is a very big chiddush, because forget about the time. If you are fortunate enough to be in a shul that's ma'achrin lotzes, so right now you have Shabbos. What's the difference if it's Tosefes Shabbos or Shabbos? And I saw Abshleim Zalman in Chuvas Tinyana, Minchas Shloima, Simelam Avav, Sif Kot and Yud. He has this shayla. You're allowed to fill up the Ma'im Achronim Kalim on Shabbos, even though you use it after the Zman, but he adds an unbelievable raya. Because the Minig Yisrael is you're allowed to prepare a dessert for Suda Shlishis, a kumpa, he calls it, even though it might involve boira, you peel apples and you cut up the apples. Why? Because you're doing it l'tzarech Shabbos. In your shul, you eat a dessert after the Zman. Now, this is not talking about Hachana, this is talking about even boira. The teretz has to be, if you are still in the Einam Haba Yom Shabbos, so who cares what the time is? So you can't have Hachana on Shabbos for Shabbos. That's mutter. And I would add, it's not a zilzal in Shabbos. Even though some people are already running in the cars. So that's their problem. On Shabbos, I'm allowed to prepare from Shabbos to Shabbos. So the point seems to be that Hachana on Shabbos is okay for the Shabbos itself, even after the Zman. Next question, is muta Hachana aydei akum? I'll give you an example. Someone wants to have a guy come in, and wash dishes on Shabbos, or in a hotel. When it's asa Hachana, is it muta Hachana aydei akum? So the emes is, the Shulchan Aruch and Shin Zayin Siv Beis gives the basic klal. Whatever a Yid can't do on Shabbos, he can't ask a guy to do for him on Shabbos. So we'll say basically, what's the shayla? Zilbasa time. If it's also for a Yid to do it, why could he ask a guy? The only thing is you might say zilbasa time, but from a different angle. Since the issur achana is tircha, so let's keep the guy busy. What's the difference if the guy's busy doing my work? What's wrong if the guy's matriach on Shabbos? But that's hardly convincing, because what's wrong if the guy does bayer for me or bishul? The guy Shabbos chayiv misa. The guy has to do malacha. The teretz is he's doing it for me. So why is achana different? So let me tell you, this is not as pashut as I thought. The Machzor in Siman Samach Gimel, see Cotton Gimel, has a beautiful tshuva. He quotes the Magen Avram in Shin Chav Aleph, Sif Zayin, that says if someone has meat that was geshachten almost 3 days ago, but it wasn't salted yet. So the halach is if you have to salt within 3 days, otherwise you can't use it. You're allowed to roast it, you can't use it as it is. So you're not allowed to be madiach, you're not allowed to salt that meat on Shabbos, because you can't eat it anyhow, it's raw meat, and therefore it's achana. And he says, achana on Shabbos is us, and he brings the two sources, washing dishes and making beds. Then the Magen Avram adds, and also, don't forget, he says, even aydei akum, you can't have the guy salt the meat for you, because you really could use the meat on Sunday if you roast it. It could sli as mutter, even though it wasn't salted. You're not allowed to cook it after 3 days if you left the blood in it, but you're allowed to roast it. So we see from the Magen Avram two chedushim. First of all, hachana aydei akum is asa, but you also see, had it not been possible to use it after Shabbos, it would be mutter aydei akum, but makam hefsid. And we'll still come back to that. But we definitely see that achana aydei akum is asa. The only het is b'makam hefsid. But he says the Pri Megadim in the beginning of Tov Kuv Gimel writes a kedarke b'kodesh nistapakni have a suffix if there's an issa achana aydei akum. So he quotes also the Das Torah in Tov Mem Daled Aleph that says you could be mekel aydei akum achana. The Pri Megadim writes a suffix, that's kedarke hatoiv. It's you do it. The Pri Megadim always wrote sveikis. But he was just miyirei hayra'ah. It's really mutter. So it says the Machzor, we see that place come on mekel. But then again, he says the Magen Avram in a few places, and he mentions the Mishnah Berurah in a few places, and I'll tell you one of them, you can look it up, in Shin Yud Tes, the end of Sivkot and Samach Beis, where Mishnah Berurah said beferish that Hachana Aidei Akum is Asa. So we have to say that we can't say all agree Hachana Aidei Akum is Asa, that Das Torah was Mekel, but we follow our Poskim Magen Avram, and the Mishnah Berurah seem to say that Hachana Aidei Akum would be Asa. But we also saw from the original Magen Avram that Hachana Aidei Akum b'makam hefsid, that's okay. What would be an example? I think a perfect example, people that have a hotel, they run a hotel, and if you wait to prepare for yomtov sheni until you start preparing first yomtov sheni, you'll have a rebellion. You'll have to wait, push off the meal for 3 hours till everything gets ready. You can't start preparing for a big oilam on the end of Yom Tov Rishon. So I think they typically rely on Hachana Aidei Akum, because this would be a case of Hachana Aidei Akum b'makam hefsid. Now, of course, malacha you can't do, but Hachana we mut Aidei Akum. We had a shayla in the yeshiva when it was Shavuos came out of Matzoy Shabbos. Same problem. If the goyim start preparing for the Suda first by the Zman of Matzoy Shabbos, you'll have to push off the whole Suda and the whole learning, and it's just a tremendous bittul Torah b'rabim. So we told them, Hachana Aidei Akum b'muta b'makam hefsid, and a hefsid of learning is definitely a qualified hefsid. As far as the guy washing dishes in a Yiddish home, so again, to tell the guy to wash the dishes, we have to be machmir that Hachana Aidei Akum is also. But if the guy has to do the work and at their convenience, they can wash whenever they want, whether it's Shabbos or Matzoy Shabbos, and the balabas doesn't care when, as long as it's done. So then you might have the heta of adaita denafshe. They choose to do it at their convenience on Shabbos, let Matzoy Shabbos. That would be a regular adaita denafshe. So now that we have a better picture, let's go even further. Question: someone wants to load the dishwasher on Shabbos, the dishes that are dirty, he puts them in the dishwasher. And I'm talking about a dishwasher that there's no malacha when you open the door, the lights don't go on, or the LED, whatever. The only question is it achana stacking the dish in the dishwasher? So the truth is, that certainly sounds like achana, because you don't use a dishwasher on Shabbos. But then again, here is one of the main benefits, I think, of a dishwasher. I once asked someone, why do people use dishwashers? It's such a tircha, put it in, take it out, and so you have to scrape it before, you have to rinse it before. Dishwasher does not want to work too hard. You have to give it clean dishes, then it does a job. So the Shah is, what's the purpose? The terrorist, he told me, you don't understand. You're right, the ikka is, it's a very convenient. You could put dirty dishes in a whole week, accumulate them, and before Shabbos, put it on, and it washes. Then you could keep the clean dishes there and take it out slowly and put it back. So it's a very storage lefaneh ula achreha. And he's right, very convenient. Oh, so now the question is such a scenario where the main purpose is a malacha, but there's benefit on Shabbos. For example, on Shabbos you want to put the dish in the dishwasher. Obviously the main reason is to wash it during the week. But you're also putting it on Shabbos because you don't want the kitchen to look messy. Instead of putting it in the sink, you put it in the dishwasher. So this is a Magen Avram and Shin Bei Sivkot and Vav, and Mr. Berurah and Sivkot and Yotes quotes him. Zok the Magen Avram, even though making beds is primarily done to prepare for sleep, and his time's not upon him, but if you make the bed because you want the room to look orderly, you don't want to have a frame without a mattress and a pillow, it just looks very messy. You want to make the bed on Shabbos so the room looks mesuda. Even though the primary reason is to go to sleep Matzah Shabbos, that's mutter. So this is the heta we're going to refer to as the Magen Avram's heta, that even though the main purpose is for a later benefit, for a post-Shabbos need, but if there's some benefit now, it's mutter. What's the svara? Pashit. Because I'm not only preparing for Matzah Shabbos, I'm having a benefit now. And that's why I should mention today's beds, I think the ikka is to make the room clean. So even though someone learns the Gemara and how to make a bed on Shabbos, we tell the Bacham especially, besides the mitzvah of kibbutz that you get right away, it's also pashit a benefit for now. Now I know some Bacham don't make a bed a whole week. The choish is gzeira atu Shabbos. But basically, making beds is generally mutter because it's a tzorech Shabbos. But don't forget what the Magen Avraham says, that even if primarily it's done for Matzah Shabbos, but if there's a benefit now, it's okay. Now, Rav Moshe Lamaisa in a tshuva in Chelik Daled, the end of Siman Ayin Daled, is makel to load a dishwasher. He doesn't mamish mention the Magen Avraham, but I'm certain that's what he means. Because loading dish, you're doing it for a benefit of now and also later. He does add, but when you put in the dishwasher, don't organize them, put each one in its place. That would be an extra tircha just for Shabbos. Which you don't need for Shabbos. Just put the dishes the way they are. Also, he says, if you have dishes that are all mixed up, and you start separating to put in each compartment, that also might be better. But typically, putting dishes in a dishwasher would be mutter because the benefit is now. So we have one important heter we'll refer to as the Magen Avram's heter, that there's some benefit now. Now let me ask you another question. I was just by an aufruf yesterday, and you see how the children and some adults scramble to get the peklach. Now the emphasis is, most people do not eat the peklach on Shabbos, because they have a more tempting kedusha rabbah in the horizon. So you put it away for after Shabbos. What's the heter to grab the peklach on Shabbos? You're first going to use it on Matzah Shabbos. I mean, usually they end up finding it erev Pesach in the talis. That's usually when you use it. But let's assume you'll bring it home after Shabbos. Why is that Hachana? So it sounds like Hachana. But here we come to a very fundamental tshuva of the Marshag in Chelik Aleph, Siman Samach Aleph, one of the Ikki Yisaidis of Hachana. Now he basically says the following. Hachana it's supposed to be done on Matzah Shabbos, and you choose to do it on Shabbos to save time on Matzah Shabbos. For example, you're leaving camp or bungalow on Sunday, so pack a Matzah Shabbos. No, but you want to run around and chaperai, another swim, another basketball game, whatever it is. So you decide, I'll pack on Shabbos and I'll play on Matzah Shabbos. Terrible lack of priorities. But the real chesaron is you're doing a post-Shabbos need on Shabbos. But let's say something that the time to do it is Shabbos. You might have the benefit of Matzah Shabbos, but the time to do it is on Shabbos. Zok the Marshag, if it's not a post-Shabbos need, and you're not doing it to save time for Matzah Shabbos, why is it Hachana? And he says, Varaya, you can't make your bed for Matzah Shabbos. But let's say you're making the bed also, the room should look nice now, it's mutter. Now, Zok the Marshag, and I'll give you his example, one of his many rayas, but let me just show how this brings out the beauty of the sugya in a very clear way. Zok the Marshag, what's the halacha someone has? I'm going to give you a good example, a very extreme example. Someone has a baseball cap, okay? He would never wear it on Shabbos. But during the week he wears it. And he left it outside, and he's afraid that a guy is going to steal it. So, but it's within an eiruv. Is he allowed to go out on Shabbos and bring in the baseball cap? The answer is, of course. This is a klisha molachte laheta. There's mutter even. Mechamol etzel shalei yiganev, right? Freg the Marshal, a very penetrating question. You're not wearing it till after Shabbos, right? You told me. So why is it mutter to bring it in? Why isn't it achana for a post-Shabbos need? If you might wear it to go to the mincha, okay, fine. But you said you're not wearing it on Shabbos. So enachami, it's not muktzah, but why isn't it achana? The teretz is, the time to save the hat from being stolen is now. You wait till Matzah Shabbos, is Shayna Chamaisa. So you're not doing it to save time. Now, even though you're not going to wear it until a Sunday afternoon's ball game, but it's still a Shabbos time. He has another raya. He says the whole concept in Shin Lamed Daled, Shin Lamed Hey, if there's a fire burning, what you're allowed to save, what you're not allowed to save, why isn't it achana? You're not going to eat those things. Another raya he brings, you're allowed to put a lulav, hadassim, or others into water after you use them on yomtov. Why isn't it achana? You finish using it today. You're preparing for tomorrow, for chalamoid. It's the same yisoid that hachana is what's supposed to be done after Shabbos. Washing dishes, making beds, preparing the salad. But you're doing it on Shabbos to save time. That's the problem. If now is the time to do it, even though the benefit is first realized on Matzah Shabbos, it's not achana. In a later tshuva in Siman Samach Gimel, someone asked the Marshag a big kasha on his yisoid, because the Paiskim discussed, based on a Gemara, if you have a behema misukenes, the behema that's sick, right now it's okay. But if you wait till after Yom Tov, the behema will die, and you can't eat it because it's a nevela. So it's also the shechter on Yom Tov, unless you can eat it on Yom Tov. So they asked the Marshag, wait a second, why is it also? Because Hachana, but if you don't do it now, you're going to lose it. He says, you didn't chap. His heter was only when the issur is Hachana. No purpose. So then if there's a purpose to do it now, Hachana is materit. But you're talking about shechting on Yom Tov, a malacha gemura, shalei l'tzarech Yom Tov. That's not my heter. My heter is only on Hachana, not malacha gemura. Plus, and I want to make another point, people ask on the Marshag from a question that we should really ask. Because we learned earlier, the Magen Avram says if you have basa that was not salted, and this is the third day, then you can't salt it on Shabbos. Aydei Akum maybe, but Aydei Yisrael not. Ayd Makam Hefsid. So his Talmud in the Ateres Moshe, Chaim Simon Kufay, says, my Rebbe knew that, Magen Avram, but his heta only was when there was no choice to do it before. It was the efsha except for today, so now the time is now. But Rabbi said the third day of Shechita means you woke up the last minute. Mamish. This is the third day. Where were you the first 2 days? The Marshag was only makel, first of all, by Hachana, not by a Maisa Issa. And also the Marshag was only makel when it's the unavoidable situation. The Moshe left his hat out. Okay, he forgot, but the Maisi left it out on Shabbos. So this is the heta we're going to refer to as the Marshag's heta, that basically if the time to do it is now, you're allowed to do it now. You'll soon see how many beautiful examples, and you'll definitely be able to relate it a little better. Then I saw another heta, Rabbi Shlomo Zalman's heta. It's both in Mincha Tinyana Siman Lamed Vav, and also very clearly in the Shmir Shabbos Chavches Sif Peites. And I'll quote the Lashon because it is somewhat of a chiddush, but it's something very understandable. Kol davar she'eini malacha v'lo asa. The only issur derabanan, and there's no tircha, but it's only achana. He's talking about achana that's not a issur or tircha, but you do it. Regil na'aseh mimi lachshav al tiyel shabsiyaseh. You do something typically, and you don't look at it like achana. Now let me give you his example. It's a chiddush, but this is what he says. You live in a place where there's an eiruv, whether in a city was an eiruv or in a bungalow colony, and you bring your talis to shul, and after davening, you fold up your talis challah, and you take it home. Why are you taking it home? You're not wearing it in your hand. You're not making kiddush with the talis. You put it in the talis zekel for next week. Why isn't that achana? I never thought of that. You know why? Because we don't look at it as achana for next week. You finish davening, you fold the talis, take it home. But Raya, next week you're going to bring this I'm adding, you're going to bring the talis to shul and put it on in shul. So why do you have to bring it home? You're not going to kiddush next week somebody else. The teretz is something that you do naturally is basically not achana. It's not perceived as achana. We'll soon see other mishalim. For example, putting back svarim after you finish learning. Let's say you know no one's going to use it afterwards. But when you finish learning, you put back a sefer. So this is Rabbi Shlomo Zalman's chiddush. Again, we'll soon see more practical examples. But something that's done without associating with achana is basically a Shabbos need. And then I saw one more chiddush in the Sefer Orchei Shabbos in Chelik Beis, Perek Chav Beis, in Sif Kuf Ayin Zayin. It's even a bigger chiddush, but it's also very understandable. Let me ask you the question. A person every night, including Friday night, learns his 2 halachos in Chafetz Chaim. Okay. Now, typically, like every single day, when he finishes learning, he takes his bookmark and puts it in and closes the sefer and gives it a kiss and puts it away till tomorrow night Seder. Why are you putting the bookmark now? It's achana for tomorrow night. You're not going to open the sefer till tomorrow night. So you say achana, big deal, but achana is a big deal and even a small action. The teretz is what he calls gmar shimush, what you do at the end of a use is not achana for tonight, tomorrow night. I'm finishing learning. You know, when you finish learning, you put a bookmark. Another example, Grady says, is bringing home your talis after davening, where there's an eiruv. It's when you use a talis, you bring it home. We're not looking at it as achana, we're looking at it the gemar shimush. It's part 2 of the use. Now, I think the hezbollah in both of these chedushim is that if it's the end of a use, it's not a zilzul in Shabbos, and it's not a tircha shalei l'tzayrich. So basically, Rabbi Shlomo Zalman's yisoid is not perceived as achana, or this yisoid that it's the end of a use. It's not a zilzul in Shabbos, not a tircha. It's basically completing what you did on Shabbos. So we have basically 4 interesting colonies in regarding Hachana. Let's just review. The Magen Avram's heta is there's a benefit now. The Mashag's heta is now the time to do it. We saw Rabbi Shlomo Zalman's heta that this is done typically without us calling it Hachana. And this new heta of Gemar Shimush. Now sit back or sit up and enjoy. We'll see how much we could gain from this simple Hakdama. A person, when he has his dirty laundry Friday night, he puts it in the laundry basket. Why isn't that achana? Just throw it under the bed until after Shabbos. The teretz is that it's not menschlich, and also that's part of using. You take off your clothing, you put it in the right place. No one ever thought I'm making achana for the laundry. When I finished my laundry, I put it in the laundry basket. But a bigger chiddush would be, let's say a child soiled the diaper, and there might be an unpleasant odor. Can I open the washing machine? Of course, there's no water in it, and there's no light in it, there's no malacha. But I'm storing the dirty laundry in the washing machine, I'm closing it, and that will contain the bad odor. So of course that sounds more like achana, and it probably is, it's closer to making a wash. But if your intention is also to benefit that it's out of the way and it contains the unpleasant odor, that would be the heta of Magen Avram. So you're having a benefit now. Someone finishes a Suda, he cleans up. What's that to clean up? Obviously, for the next Suda. But let's say you finish the day Suda, and you're not staying home for Shalosh Shudas. So what's that to clean up? The teretz is, we have the Magen Avram's hat, you want to have a normal looking home. You want to have a Shabbos that's Masuda. Rabbi Shlomo Zalman says, Mamish this Shaila, you're allowed to take the food and put it back in the refrigerator. Why? Because that's basically, no one looks at it. I'm putting back the mayonnaise to Hachana for Sunday. I finished the mayonnaise, I put it back. That's the Gemar Shimush. And the emphasis is, if it might spoil, you have the Marshag's heta. But even without the Marshag's heta, that it spoils, this is normal living. Part of a Shabbos Suda is you clean up. Now, if the table looked like a bomb hit it, like some yeshivas or camps, so to find the salt shaker, you might have boira. So I'm not getting into boira. But if it's just achana, it's basically normal living, and we have almost all of the entail. Now, someone says, so if I have to put away, why do I have to put the challah in the freezer? I might as well just put it in the closest place. So there's no chiyuv to be a batlin. If you want to put it in the freezer to keep it fresh for after Shabbos, so that might have mashag's heta. You could put it in the right place. There's no chiyuv to be, a batlin and do the wrong things. So cleaning up, if it doesn't involve boira, would be okay. Now, the paiskim say cleaning up after Shalosh Shudas in a simcha hall or the like, where you don't daven there, so that's not necessary. There's none of the reasons. In Magen Avram's doesn't apply. It's not a covered tefillah if you're davening upstairs and the simcha was downstairs. Now, let's say you're davening in the simcha hall and you feel, I can't daven in such a disarray. So if you're cleaning up the Shalosh Shudas for a nicer davening, so you have the Magen Avram. But basically, this is the assumption. At home, it's generally mutter. In a shul where they eat someplace else, in the shul, even if they daven ma'ariv in the shul with the Shalosh Shudas, maybe they consider part of the covered Shabbos, not to clean it, but basically you have to know if there's a tzorich or not. The same is true cleaning up for children's toys. So of course sometimes you could have a boira issue, but without boira, cleaning up so the house should be masuda, even if the children will not use it again on Shabbos, that will be the het of the Magen Avram. Someone asked me a question, and it was a question with Yiras Shamayim. He's the last one out after Mincha Shabbos afternoon. And he used the sefer. And he's certain that no one will ever use this sefer until after Meir for sure. He just took out a Zohar on Parshas Bereshis, and this week is Parshas Truma. So no chashash someone's going to look for it and not find it. Is it mutter to put back the sefer before he goes to Shalosh Shudas? No one will end up using it or needing it. So there's no tzorich for Shabbos. So the emes is, this would be Rabbi Shlomo Zalman's heta. You learn a sefer, you put it back. No one thinks you're planning for the next person. This is the Gemar Shimush. Rabbi Aaron used to say in the Gemara, Mamish, the end of Megillah, if someone touches the Sefer Torah, nikva oram. Steht in the Gemara. Nikva oram salka daitach, oram beloy mitzvah. Why? Because a person that's mavaza mitzvah loses the schar of the mitzvah. So Rabbi Aaron says, using a sefer and not putting back, chas v'shalom could be nikva oram. Because he was mavaza the sefer, mavaza the yeshiva, he's mavaza the makam Torah. putting back the sefer is not just learning Torah, it's living Torah. It's putting back where it belongs. The Stipler, the famous letter in Kraina the Igros Chelik Aleph Amud Ayin Ches calls it Amidas Achzarius Veresha, not to put a sefer back. There are plenty of reasons to put back a sefer after use. So obviously it's not achana, it's understood, it's part of the use of learning, it's part of being menschlich. Now you'll say, well, I'll put it back right after Ma'ariv, and let's say you forget. But without that, it's many shuls, at least when I was growing up, they used to have a stamp, you're allowed to use a sefer, so if it's a precondition in learning, it's you have to put it back no matter what. So the best thing is put it back and don't worry. Now the question of rinsing the dishes before you put it into the dishwasher, that's a little more of a sticky issue, because to get it out of sight, just put it in a dishwasher. And that's why it makes sense to put it in the way they are. And after Shabbos, you could be masader it, and if need be, rinse it. But some people say, if you do that after Shabbos, you come and everything is stuck on it, and it's hardened, and it doesn't come off. So then you might have the Marshag's heta. Rav Shlomo Zalman does use his heta for this very shaila, that rinsing it right away, he says, is done as like the end of the use. And the emphasis, in a more of a lamdish outlook, if you wash dishes or soak dishes that have like a challah pot, that's a malacha of soaking something to get off the hardened substance. The plates after the using, the rinsing basically avoids it from sticking. So it could be it's not even a real ma'isa chana in that respect, because you're not taking off the dirt that's stuck on, you're preventing it from sticking on. But although I did see machmirim, but the Shlomo Zalman, l'shitasa, felt it's mutter, and if someone feels he has the mashag also, after Shabbos it will take much, much longer. So if he basically rinses it right away and puts it in dishwasher, yesh al mi lismach. Listen to a beautiful psak. Besides being a beautiful ori, you see how Gedolim understood people. Someone asked Rabbi Moshe the following question. He puts his children on pajamas, let's say during a summer Shabbos afternoon, 7:30. But the children never go to sleep before havdala. They run around and they make trouble until after havdala. Then he realizes he's always dressing the children in pajamas to go to sleep at Tzari Shabbos. Why is that achana? He's putting them on 7:30, Itzumay Shel Shabbos, to go to sleep later. So Moshe writes, Kafi ma yediyah in children of the age of 2, 3, maybe even 4, that's part of going to sleep. You tell them to go to sleep at 7:30, they run around, they're defiant, until they run around 2 hours, totally fatigued, and they go to sleep. It's like what I call a harmless tranquilizer. A slow-release tranquilizer. So Moshe says, Kafi ma yediyah, and I think since he wrote it, it's more than 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's part of getting to sleep is you have to be defiant and then fall asleep. So Aybazai, he says, you have to do it now. Now, I don't know if he means the Marshag or the Magen Avram or both, but you need it now. It's like a slow-release activity. It has to start now. And also there's a benefit now that you're starting to tire them out. He does say, if the only reason you're putting on pajamas now is to save time for later, and that's awesome. But typically, again, this would be mutter for that svar. Someone asked me, again, of Shaila, he puts his socks, it's a Friday night away in the hamper, but in his family they put sock tucks. Basically, you hold the socks together. What's the purpose? So when the Bnei Bayis wash it, they don't have to pair the socks, they're all together. So the emes says you could look at it as an achana, because you don't wash laundry on Shabbos. But then again, if this is the way you put socks away, it's the end of using, it's like Rabbi Shlomo Zalman's heta certainly applies. No one says, I'm preparing for laundry. I'm putting it away. This is part of putting it away. I think that will be fine. Another question is, someone asked me this, he says he realizes he's low on wine or grape juice, and he tells the children, don't drink the wine, we need it for havdala. So that sounds like a Hachana issue, but in essence, he's not doing anything. I mean, he's not even making a halachos of like a of tchumen. He's basically keeping like a shev al tasa, don't drink the wine. So the only thing that bothers me a little bit is like he's saying, don't eat this, save it for Sunday. Don't eat the food. Don't eat Shabbos to save your appetite for the hot pizza Matzoi Shabbos. So that might be a little of an inappropriate statement. So better just say, put the wine away. But even so, to say we need for havdala is not a zilzul in Shabbos, because havdala is part of Shabbos and part of Kiddush on Shabbos, like the Rambam. So better avoid stressing it, but it's not a hachana. Another halacha that we could understand is what we said earlier, of putting a bookmark in, even though you're not going to really use the sefer again until after Shabbos. But what people often ask, they found a beautiful vart, and they want to, bend, of course, if it's their own sefer, that is, they want to bend the top of the page to remember where to look after Shabbos. So you're really doing it for Mitzvah Shabbos, but then again, you have the Mashag's Heta, because you don't, remember after Shabbos, because you probably forgot by then. You have Rabbi Shlomo Zalman's Heta, this is the using of it, and this is the way you remember it by doing it now. And the emes is a Kamara Befer Shiraya, the Mishtabur and Shin Mem Sif Katan Yud Gimel. He says you shouldn't put a little bit wax on Shabbos onto a sefer to remember that which page you want, because of the issur of Mareach. Is mashma, he's not al Hachana, he's worried about Mareach. And more specifically, the Mishtabur and the Shulchan Aruch and Shin Mem Sif Hey Mutta Lirsham B'tziparin Ala Sefer, the siman, make a siman about this page that you're interested in after Shabbos. So basically, it seems that it is achana for after Shabbos, but we have many of our teirim that now is the time to do it, and this is basically the time to do it. A tricky question, something you think about. A parent who was not very learned asked a child, please set up a little for malka in the next few minutes until eiruv. Now, the parent's not a bad parent. They don't know that Achana is awesome. So the child asks, is he allowed to listen to his parents and prepare for malka? Now, this happens to be a very lamdish shayla, very beautiful shayla. Because Pashit, if the parent tells you to do an avera, you're not allowed to listen. Laval divrei Torah. If the parent tells you to do bayrich, Hashem to listen. But I think Hachana is different than any other malacha issur. Because the issur Hachana there's no purpose to do it now. Do it tonight. But if I do it now, I have a mitzvah deraisa of kibbut of aim. So not shot I'm doing an Aveira because of kibbut of. If there's kibbut of, maybe there's no ma'aseh, it's not achana. So it comes to mind was Rabbi Shlomo Zalman in Tinyana, Tshuvas, the end of Sim Gimel, has a fascinating shayla. If someone finds an Aveda on Shabbos, a klisha malachta le'issa, but he has no use, he's not allowed to use it. He wants to pick it up on Shabbos to get the mitzvah Shabbos Aveda. Is that considered tzarech gufa mekayme? And it says no. It quotes Chasam Soifa also. It's not tzarech gufa mekayme. You're not using it. Do a mitzvah. The mitzvah is not to touch it. But then I saw something better yet. The Shlomo Zalman says, if a parent, this is in Shmir Shabbos, in Perik Chaf Ha'orach Chaf Tes, if a parent who doesn't know halacha tells a child to move something, a klisha malachta le'issa, the child shouldn't do it. Even though the child has a reason to do it, I'll keep it of, but al-mais it's muktzah. So it seems for some reason this is the same thing. Because if you start and you say, well, I'm doing it, I'll keep it of, so it's not achana, you might have a good argument. But then again, if this is achana, don't do it. So that's something to think about. Another question, Mola Yira Shemayim, someone who puts his children or grandchildren to sleep, and on a long Shabbos afternoon during the summer, he puts them to sleep 7:30, and he gets the negavasa ready, wants to mechanach them, you go to sleep with negavasa by the bed, and once he realized, wow, they're going to sleep a whole night, wake up Sunday morning, and the negavasa that I prepared for them on Shabbos, they're using first Sunday, is at Hachana. You'd think such a thing, it's beautiful. He's thinking, he prepared a negavasa for Sunday morning. So he might be right, they're going to first wash on Sunday, but then again, you have many of our teirim, because you're doing it for the chinuch now, a child should go to sleep with negavasa. So we have the Marshag's heta, now's the time to do it. We have the heta, that this is part of going to sleep, and there's a benefit now. But let me just mention briefly something that the Baruch asked in the yeshiva, I have this often. Here's the metzias, and this is the given. The given is that the Baruch keep the negava shislach in a washroom. You get a 50 cup stack one and the other, and 50 shislach one and the other. And one doesn't use the others. That's the given. So you have to take out your negava shissel the night, Friday night, and prepare it by the bed. They're first using it 6, 7, 8, maybe a bagel of hours later when they wake up. So the question is not achana, because it's Shabbos to Shabbos. Boyer. If the assumption is taruvais, is that considered boyer miyad? Mitzarecha, you're first washing many hours later. It's not miyad. Or maybe you look at the filling as the hishtamshus miyad. So I was thinking maybe compare that to what we said regarding achana, but like karzel zeh klal. Because when it comes to achana, there has to be a purpose now. This is a purpose now. But boira, the only heta is derech ma'isa achila, whatever the Russian want to use. But here, the use is first tomorrow. So then I thought of something which is a sugi for itself. I'll just give it a maramokam in the Shmir Shabbos, Perek Gimel, or Reish Vav and Reish Chav Beis, and a beautiful discussion in Shulchan Shleim, Shin Yotes, Siman Dalet, Sif Kat and Hay, has a fascinating shayla. I need a challah for shalashuddis. The problem is my freezer is a balagan, and it's mixed up. It's one big taruvais. To find the challah, I have to make bayram. That's the given. So 2 hours before Shabbos, I go to the freezer, I say a kapitel tilim, and I look, and I finally find it. I take it out, and it's ready 2 hours later. Is that mutter because I just did bayra for 2 hours later? So you might say, wait a minute, but you need 2 hours. So in these marmakaimis, you're not preparing it for 2 hours. You took it out now for 2 hours later. That's not bayra miyad. So if that's not bayra miyad, maybe the negavas is also not bayra miyad. But there's one chiluk. Because there you're not using the challah at all for 2 hours. Here I'm at least filling up the negavas shisel tonight. So Adarabah, if you have something to say, please tell me, but we're moving on. But this is, what my point is, you can't compare a bayra that's a malacha deraisa, the heta is derech achila, to achana, that all you need is a little bit of a tzayrich to make it mutter. In other words, the Magen Avram's heta applies to achana, not to every malacha. The question that we mentioned earlier about carrying home a talis or a safe or anything in a bungalow colony or in a city where there's an eiruv, we saw Rabbi Shlomo Zalman in Tinyana, Sif Cotton Gimel, gives this mashal, that if typically you do it not al tzachana, you take on your talis, you have to davening, it's not achana, it's mutter. Now I should mention, if you keep your talis in shul every single Shabbos, but you know next Shabbos you're going out of town for a simcha, you take it home now to have it at home, that's achana. But if you always bring things home, it should be mutter. That's what I thought, and it makes a lot of sense. What concerned me is, Rav Moshe in Chelekei Siman Chaf was asked the shaila about people got from Eretz Yisrael, but it's not in the Galav Eretz Yisrael, where there's an eiruv and they carry metalis after davening. Why is it mutter? Why isn't it achana? No carrying because it's an eiruv. Why isn't it achana? So Moshe says because people are uncomfortable leaving it in shul. Somebody might put it on, take it. For achana, it's enough of a tzarech that it's not for tomorrow, it's for today. Why did Moshe need that? Why didn't he say kipshutai, that like Shlomo Zalman's heta, or the heta that's the gemar shimushai? So it's pretty apparent that Moshe didn't accept this broad heta of without thinking it's okay, or gemar shimush. So although we did see that the paiskim, I mentioned Shlomo Zalman was mekel, but Rav Moshe is machmer in the Ashriya Ish Perek Lamadal Tzif Aleph. They asked Rabbi Yashav carrying a matalas after davening. He said, "Loi kedai, better wear it home." Now wearing it is fine, even though you're only wearing it home to carry it home. But once you're doing a mitzvah, that's okay. But I think we should understand that this heta about this is just done without associating it as hachana. I can't say all paiskim agree. Rav Shlomo Zalman is mekel, so avada yeshami lismoich. But this is something that you have to really reconsider. Another question, which is important to mention, is hopefully we'll have a B'zerach de Pesach al B'Shabbos, and we'll have the shayla as well. Let's say a person has a vort Matzoi Shabbos. He tells his children, you must sleep on Shabbos or else you can't go to the vort on Matzoi Shabbos. Or you must sleep Erev Pesach because you want to stay for the Seder tonight. Question is that mutter? So l'chayra, what's the problem? And what's the shayla? You're sleeping today for tonight. But then again, we have a Magen Avram. Magen Avram says when there's a benefit now, you're allowed to do it now. No, a person has a nice nap in the afternoon, he's a mensch. If he sleeps Shabbos afternoon, he wakes up, he can learn a few hours in Erev Pesach, Shechal B'Shabbos. It's a great idea, by the way. You finish the Suda before Chatzos, take a rest and go to shul and learn the whole afternoon. It'll be the best Pesach you ever had. The achon of hours of learning in shul. So why can't I have the Magen Avram's heta? But the pella is the Sefer Chassidim. One of the Rishonim, Siman Reish Samach Vav, quoted by the Magen Avram, Mishtabura Achashulchan, Lo yoyma adam nishan, we're going to sleep on Shabbos, Kadei shenasem achtenim Matzoi Shabbos, because then you're sleeping for Matzoi Shabbos. Elo yoyma nanuach ki Shabbos hayoyim. Don't talk so much. Go to sleep on Shabbos and don't say why you're sleeping. So this is mamash our shayla. You can't say sleep today for tonight. But the question is, 1 second. If you can't say it, so why could you do it? Who are you fooling? If you're sleeping today for that, why is that mutter? And why is it worse if you say something? Zokti al Yerab and Simon Shin Zayin, Sif Katan Aleph, Be'emes, it's mutter to sleep today for tonight, because you're having a benefit now. It's Einik Shabbos Tainuk. But if you're saying it for tonight, that's a bizayin. Why are you taking a mitzvah, turning it into a Hachana? So I'm thinking our shayla of our Pesach Chal B'Shabbos is mamish this yisoid. So basically, you're allowed to do it, but don't say why you're doing it. And a very common question is studying on Shabbos, whether it's a Gemara test, a Mishnah Berurah test, an English test. So Pashtus, any studying, if you're studying for after Shabbos, that seems to be Achana. You'll say, but I'm learning. But we said earlier, Advar Mitzvah is not Matir Hachana. But there's one chiluk. I can't do Hachana for Advar Mitzvah after Shabbos. But learning on Shabbos is not Hachana for a mitzvah. Learning is a mitzvah. How could a mitzvah be Hachana? So it seems clear that learning on Shabbos, even though you're studying for your Daf Yomi for her or your Mishnah Berurah for her, it's Hachana, which is a mitzvah, and it's okay. And Takat the Paiskim say that. Now, you shouldn't say, I'm studying for my test that I'm getting in Gemara, because that's like the Sefer Chassidim, you're turning a mitzvah into Hachana. But to study for a Limudei Kodesh test is fine. To study your laning that you're doing on Sunday, or laning Megillah, Matzah Shabbos Purim, or whatever it is all fine, because that's Divrei Mitzvah. The sticky issue is studying Limudei Chayil. Now, versteht sich, Limudei Chayil is inappropriate on Shabbos, and sometimes it's also on Shabbos. I'm talking when it's within the parameters of what's mutter to learn on Shabbos. You look at Shin Zayin, and the Shulchan Aruch discusses that, and Shin Ches at the end, what's mutter to study of secular studies. We're talking about what's mutter on Shabbos. Are you allowed to study or not? So, this is Hachana, that's not a mitzvah. But Rabbi Shlomo Zalman in Shmir Shabbos, Perik Chav Ches Or Reish Chav and Reish Chav Aleph, he says, could be, if you're also doing it to have the knowledge now, so there's a benefit now. And I think he means the Magen Avraham. You're a more educated person. Varaya, people study these things without a test. They read for the knowledge. So I think he's using the Magen Avraham to say there's a benefit now. He does say, but if you don't care at all about the knowledge, you're mamish purely shalai lishma, only for the test, that would be asa. But what's interesting to me is his son is quoted in Shmuel, is quoted in the Archa Shabbos, Chav Beis, Reish Sadik, that doesn't understand that. Because Lamaisa, he becomes a better person. It means you can't meichen something from Matzoy Shabbos. But Achanas ha'adam, you can be meichen yourself. So once there's a benefit of knowing more knowledge, he doesn't understand why it's awesome. So we really should say what the Mechaber says in Shinvav, Siv Ches, Shabbos, don't think of anything but Ruchnius. Kol malachtecha asuya. The Beis Yosef quotes the Beinu Yoina, and we say Shabbos should be menucha shalim v'hashkeit uvetach. Shabbos has to be menucha. I told the Baruch, why do you want to study for a test on Shabbos? Even Gehenim stops on Shabbos. Why are you busy with Yemudei Chayil? So I can't say it's asa, but I can definitely say that it's inappropriate. Maybe it's mutter mi'ikad din. And one mashal I want to mention is making hachana on Matzoy Shabbos after the Zman. For example, it's after the Zman, he wants to do a little cleaning up before Eiruv. Is Hachana mutter after the Zman Rabbeinu Tam, or is it you have to first say Baruch HaMavdal? So I saw the Shmir Shabbos in Samach Beis Yud Aleph. He says you can't do malacha on Matzoy Shabbos or Matzoy Shabbos into yomtov unless you say Baruch HaMavdal. The chiddush is that the Mishnah Berurah in the end of Reish Sadates quotes El Yerabah to prepare on one day yomtov for the next, once it's the Zman, is mutter without any havdala, without Baruch HaMavdal, of course. Once it's the Zman, you're allowed to do malach from one day to the next. So you see that Hachana after the Zman is okay. But it's not a raya at all. Because there's never havdala first day to the second. Navas, when the day is over, you're allowed to prepare for the next day. But Matzoy Shabbos, or Matzoy Shabbos Echal B'Yomtiv, where there is a havdala b'tfilah, havdala alakais, you would have to say Baruch HaMavdal. And that's what the Paiskim seem to say, that when you're doing Hav Melacha, even after this man, you should make a Baruch HaMavdal. And that's why when someone asks me, he comes to shul, Shabbos afternoon, and he wants to bring us, late in the afternoon, before Ma'ariv, he wants to take a siddur from the shelf and bring it to a seat. So he was thinking, it's even worse this case, because right now it's bein hashmoshes. He's first using it for eiruv. So I told him the eights is two eights. Number one, learn Pirkei Avos when you get to your seat, or say V'hu Rachum. Because when is Shabbos over? Only after Baruch Hu. If you do something on Shabbos, so it's Hachana for Shabbos to Shabbos. If he comes after the Zman, then en echanami. If he says Baruch HaMavdala, he could do the malacha then. I couldn't talk to you all.
Shame being Shatter, I'd like to thank Rabbi Smith for the wonderful shir. The Sikkim is right after Mincha. The schedule of the next 4 weeks of shiurim, the daily shiurim are available on the Bima. Tomorrow is a specialist shir for Chodesh Odeh. Rav are going to be like Isaac Krashevsky Shlita. Aber Hachana Kashem Manot Geshbach Lazak is all fik Hibram Tay Mitzvah Shnei Madan Chovas Man Tzitka Yagel Taviyad.
Just to review what we learned today, Be'ez Hashem, we saw the Hachana, the issur Hachana is basically for 2 reasons. Both are true. First of all, is a tircha on Shabbos for Choyel. It's also a zilzal on Shabbos to be busy with post-Shabbos needs. And basically, the Shabbos, every moment is precious, every second is precious, and it's not to squander by preparing on Shabbos and Matzoy Shabbos. The aside of the issur is doing something exclusively for Choyel. For example, making beds for Matzoy Shabbos, washing dishes. It's basically preparing for a post-Shabbos need. And when Hachana is asa, even if you're preparing a dvar mitzvah, if it could wait, it should be prepared on Matzoy Shabbos. We are machmer not to have a guy do Hachana for us unless there's a makam hefsid, it's a gadol. Because again, it's the malacha that's also, even though the issur is tircha, but again, it's like any other issur, the Rabbanan, that Amir Lakim is only mutter, makam mitzvah, tsar, or hefsid. The Magen Avram was mechadish that if there's some benefit now, for example, you're making a bed to go to sleep tonight, but the room is mesuda now, there's some benefit now, or you're cleaning up the room, putting away the children's toys, or putting back the svarim. In many other cases where the benefit is now, even though the ik is for later, that will be mutter. The Mashag had a heta that if now is the time to do it, when they're throwing peklach, you can't come back Matzoy Shabbos and take the peklach. You take it now and put it away. So if the time is now, you're not doing it to save time for Matzoy Shabbos. Now is the time to do it. That's mutter. So Zalman had a big chiddush that if it's not perceived as hachana, it's done almost without thinking. You take your talis to shul, you bring it home, you put back svarim. So that's basically not a ma'isa hachana. And then we saw the 4th svarim that it's a gemar shimush. It's basically like you're finishing the use. So based on this, putting laundry back either in the laundry basket or even in a washing machine when there's no other malacha, if it's done for a positive need now, that would not be hachana. We also saw cleaning a table, even though you're not eating it on the same table, but you need it, the house should look organized, and you can put back food either in the refrigerator or freezer. Of course, when the table is a total taruvais, then you have to be worried about bayra, but typically cleaning is fine. Putting back svarim should always be done, even if it's after mincha, because that's part of using, to put back. Toys can be cleaned up even if you're not using it again, if there's no bayra, because that's not hachana, the benefit is now, the house should look organized. Rinsing the dishes before you put them to the dishwasher, we did see it's hard to be mekel, because that's really the time to do it, otherwise it will get much more difficult. So those that are machma tavelei and bracha, but there is a tzad to be mekel if it's just rinsing and not soaking, which means you have to get off the stain that already, or the accumulation that already hardened onto the pot. Putting children on pajamas early in the day to make sure they go to sleep later, that's part of the process. Putting laundry into sock tucks or saving wine for havdala, all those things are okay. Putting a bookmark into a sefer to know where to come back tomorrow night, or bending a page to know what to come back to, that's all a now activity, it's not a Matzoy Shabbos activity. We had an interesting question: if a parent tells a child to do Hachana, do we say it's not laval divrei Torah because there's a child is doing it for the benefit of now, so it's not a Hachana? Or an issur is an issur, and that doesn't justify even Hachana. Another shaila we had about filling negovasa for a child that I was going to use it first tomorrow, so it could be that's more mutter because you're doing it for the benefit of now, even though he's using it on Sunday morning. But we did leave with the shaila when Bachrim have to make bayra on their shissel at night for the next day, even though Shabbos is their heta of bayra because you're really taking from a taruvais. Do we say that the use is now to fill it, or the use is tomorrow to wash with it? Carrying home a talis or a sefer from shul within an eiruv, we did see many paiskim are mekel, or Moshe is only mekel when there's a problem of leaving it in shul. Now this should not be confused carrying on yomtov one day to the next, where there's no eiruvs, that's an issur v'aitzah shaloi l'tzorech. This shir today was talking about the issur Hachana. Some say it's not Hachana because that's the Gemara Shimush, or that's the way it's done. Rabbi held it's only mutter to take on a talis if there's a concern of leaving it in shul. Sleeping on Shabbos and Motzei Shabbos is okay because the benefit is realized now, but don't say I'm sleeping for tonight. Studying for Limudei Kodesh is definitely mutter, don't say for tonight. I'm saying it, I'm learning for learning. Studying English subject, Miyakadid is mutter, but it's certainly not appropriate for Kedusha Shabbos. Hachana that's done for after the Zman, just after the Zman, you want to do Hachana for later. There are some that are makel once the Zman came, but it's best to say Baruch HaMavdala, as we said earlier. I should have mentioned, if a person didn't bench yet, it's better not to say Baruch HaMavdala because then he loses the benching, the Ritzayim benching that is. So best would be that he should first bench, and then when he has to do the Hachana, to say Baruch HaMavdala. We did see that basically taking out a siddur to go on the way to Ma'ariv, that's the time to do it, and you have the Marshag's heta. But basically something that's done with any benefit now would not be the issur of Hachana.